Hi, third graders. Today we're going to learn about physical, behavioral, and inherited traits. You're also going to need the notes that say slideshow notes to fill out as we go through the video. All right, let's get started. So, what is a trait? A trait is a quality that makes a person, an animal, or a plant different from another. And there are three different types of traits. They're physical, inherited, and behavioral. So if you look at these pictures, you can see that there are plants that are different shapes, colors, sizes. The picture of the kids also have kids, different sizes, different skin colors, their face shapes are different. And then again, same thing for the animals. The animals all have different traits. That's why every plant, person, and animal is different from each other. So on your paper, slideshow notes, go ahead and pause the video and write down what is a trait. When you're done, go ahead and push start. So on this slide, we have physical traits. Some examples of physical traits are the traits that you can see in a plant, an animal, or a person. So when you think about somebody's eye color, that's a trait you can see. Their hair color, that's something you can see. The size of their body, that is something you can see. The shape of their nose, that is something you can see. When you're talking about plants, the shape of the leaves, even the color of the leaves. If the leaves have anything pokey or sharp on them, that is a trait. For animals and people, their skin, the color of it, the texture of it is a physical trait. The height of animals and people and plants, that's also a physical trait. That's something you can see. So remember, a physical trait is something you can only be seen with the eye. And on your paper, in this box, it says, what are some examples of physical traits? You can use mine from this slide, or you can come up with your own. So pause the video and fill that out. Next trait that we're going to talk about is called an inherited trait. An inherited trait is something that you get from your parent. So because you are the offspring or the child or the baby of your parent, you get a trait passed on from them. And some of those traits are very similar or are physical traits, but they can only come from the parent. For example, the eye color that you have came from your parents, so that's an inherited trait. The color of your skin came from your parents. That's an inherited trait. The size that you are, so if you're tall or short, that is an inherited trait. If you are an animal, like a bear or a dog or a cat or a koala bear, the type of fur that you would have came from the parent of that animal. Also, the shape of your face, which would be both humans and animals, that would be an inherited trait that came from the parents. So you can see how inherited traits are very similar to physical traits because they are traits you can see, but there are also inherited traits that you cannot see. So on your paper, it says, what are inherited traits? I want you to tell me what inherited traits are. And if you want, you can put some examples since we don't have a box for examples of inherited traits. Okay, stop the video and fill in your chart. So the next trait we're talking about is a behavioral trait. And in the word behavioral, you see the word behavior. So a behavioral trait are traits are the way that something acts. So an animal has a certain behavior, you have certain behaviors, other people you know have certain behaviors. Well, some of those behaviors are learned. You learn to behave that way. And some of those behaviors you do because you inherited that behavior from your parents. So some examples of behavioral traits. So if there are animals that forage for food, that means they dig and they have to search. Those are behavioral traits because they inherited that from their parents. They know that they have to look for food to eat. Animals that build nests, dig burrows, or migrate, those are also inherited behaviors. They just do that because their parents do that. So that is a behavioral trait that's inherited. A learned behavioral trait would be speaking a language. You have to learn to talk. You're not just born knowing how to speak. You also have to play a sport, learn to play a sport. So you aren't born knowing how to play baseball or basketball or soccer. You have to learn that. So that is a behavior that you've learned. Trusting others. So that's something that you don't necessarily see with your eyes, but it's a behavior that certain people have. Either they might not trust others or they might be very trusting of others. Being mindful, that means being aware of what you are doing. That is a behavioral trait. Also being careless. If you are a person that doesn't think about things, you don't have any cares in the world, that is a behavioral trait. That's a way that you act. Maybe if you are shy or outgoing or a kind person or a mean person, those are behaviors that you have. Those are behavioral traits. So on your paper here, you have give 3 examples of behavioral traits. Go ahead and pause the video and write those down. So another trait is an acquired trait. And an acquired trait is a trait that a living thing gets after birth. That means you are not born with it. You get it after birth. It is not passed on from the parent. So some examples of acquired traits. Learning to read, to speak, to cook. Maybe a horse that's in a corral or a fenced area with an electric fence. Maybe they touched the fence one time and realized, oh, I'm not supposed to do that. And they stay away from the fence after that because they know if they touch the fence, they could get shocked. So a horse learning to stay away from an electric fence is an acquired trait. Also, dogs learning not to jump on people. So if you had a dog that was jumping up on people and you trained it somehow to not do that, that is an acquired trait. They had to learn what to do to behave the correct way. Another acquired trait is learning to multiply. You're not born knowing how to multiply, but if you are in a classroom and you are learning, same thing with reading, you are learning all the time, you learn that trait. So that is an acquired trait. Those are acquired traits. So on your paper, you have a box here that says, what are acquired traits? So go ahead and write down the definition of what an acquired trait is. And if you want to put some examples, you can do that. Pause the video until you're finished. Okay, so let's look at this grasshopper. This will finish up our thoughts on traits. This grasshopper has different colors on its body. I want you to think about how those differences in the colors provide an advantage. That means something that can help the grasshopper. Why would those colors be a good thing, the different colors be a good thing for this grasshopper? I want you to think about that, and I want you to fill out this box at the bottom of your paper. Why does that grasshopper have something, an advantage because it has different colors? How can it help it? And then I want you to think about this. The colors that this grasshopper has, what kind of trait does that represent? So is it a behavioral trait? That means it's doing something, it's acting a certain way. Is it an acquired trait? That means it kind of learned how to be colorful. Do you think that that trait is inherited, meaning it got the colors from its parents? What do you think that the different colors of the grasshopper represents? Okay, so those are some things to think about. The rest of your assignment is going to also do with traits. So you're going to need to cut out this paper that says, I have many traits. And you're going to write down your physical traits. What do you have that you can see? And do you think those are acquired, that you got them after birth, or inherited? That means they came from your parents. And then you're going to think of some of your behaviors. You're going to write 4 of your behaviors. Did you acquire those after birth, or did you inherit those from your parents? After you do that, you're going to cut out the next sheet in that packet. This is a pocket. And you're going to fold the edges here. And you're going to glue the edges to make a pocket on the back of your slideshow notes. You'll put glue so you can make a pocket on the back of your slideshow notes. Then this, when you are finished, will slide right into the pocket on your paper. So it'll look like, kind of look like that, so it can come in and out. And then on the outside of your pocket, I want you to draw a picture of yourself. So on the outside of this pocket that has your many traits, you're going to draw you, and I want you to show me some of your traits. So the directions say, think about your traits, draw a picture of yourself, and on the outside of the pocket. So let's see what kind of traits you draw on your pocket. When you're finished with that, you have 2 more papers, inherited and acquired traits, and then physical or behavioral traits. I'm going to post an answer video for these, and you can check your work when you're done. All right, let's see how well you do with learning about traits today. Good job, boys and girls. We'll see you next time.